I remember the summer of 2013, back when James Wan's The Conjuring was unleashed upon the world. I watched it in a packed theater and everybody had a blast. Except there was this annoying teenager with braces who kept screaming. That was me. 8 long years have since passed, and thankfully I don't have braces anymore. But most importantly, the Conjuring Universe has become a nearly $2 billion grossing franchise, with 7 movies under its belt, and with the new movie coming out next week, I figured now would be a good time to determine whether these films are worth watching, or if they should be exorcised back to hell. The Conjuring takes place in 1971 after the events of The Nun, Annabelle Creation, and Annabelle, but before Annabelle comes home, The Conjuring 2, and
La Llorona.
In this one, we follow Roger and Carolyn Perron moving into an old farmhouse in Rhode Island with their 5 children.
It's gonna be great, isn't it?
No, not really, no, because soon enough, the family gets spooked by strange paranormal activities, including leg pulling, ball rolling, doors creaking, birds dying, hands clapping, and witch jumping. And that just about does it for Carolyn, who seeks the help of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, based on the real-life couple. There was a big emphasis on the whole based on a true story gimmick for the marketing of this movie, and although the Warrens have since passed away, Lorraine was still alive when the film was being made and served as a consultant.
The Conjuring is very, very accurate.
I don't know, I kinda have my doubts on that.
Jesus Christ, go back to where you came from.
Well, that's just rude. Back to the movie, the Warrens start investigating the house, and Lorraine discovers that there's a witch hanging out with them. Literally, hanging. This old hag is none other than Bathsheba.
Bathsheba. She's related to Marytown Estate. She's one of the women.
It seems that Bathsheba the witch was a bitch who worshipped Satan and sacrificed her week-old child to the devil and cursed her land before she hung herself. Basically, she's the first ever Karen. For the next 100 years, she haunted families moving into her home and possessed the mothers to kill their children before committing suicide.
How could you have committed suicide?
Carolyn is no exception to this rule, as she too gets possessed by Bathsheba, who gloriously throws up in her fucking face. But Carolyn seems fine though.
I'm fine.
Nope, I'm kidding, she's possessed, very much. Not gonna lie, this scene kind of makes me laugh. Roger! Anyway, some spooky shit happens, and then Lorraine saves Carolyn by grabbing her face and invoking plot-convenient flashbacks of a nice day at the beach, followed by funny grunts once again. Yes, with the power of Beach Day, Carolyn comes to her senses and everybody's happy. The Conjuring was a raving success, both critically and financially, praised for being genuinely disturbing, so much so that it earned an R rating not because of blood or violence or nudity, but just because, well, it's too damn scary. However, to its core, the film remains a typical haunted house spookfest filled with tropes we've seen 100 times before. Creepy old house, doors creaking, jump scares, dog sensing evil and dying, possession and exorcism, jump scares, creepy kid befriending a ghost kid and not being scared by it for some reason, creepy doll, jump scares, the list goes on and on. Why The Conjuring succeeds where other similar movies fail simply comes down to the execution of these formulaic tropes. James Wan did an excellent job here in building up tension and making the evil spirits feel pretty fucking scary. The first act is very much a slow burn, taking its time to establish the atmosphere and the unnerving sense that something is wrong. The idea of having characters seeing something that the audience can't is a great way to creep people out without giving away too much too quickly.
It's standing right behind you.
Julie Berghoff's production design perfectly sets the mood for a good old classic ghost story, with this beautiful yet oddly disturbing house, the cobwebby creepy basement, and the long dark corridors. John R. Leonetti might be a terrible director, but a great director of photography. His cinematography here is gorgeous, harking back to 70s horror movies, shot mostly on film and using a lot of eerie slow zooms, giving the impression that the house is constantly watching the family. His use of long tracking handheld shots following following the characters going from room to room made the scenes feel uneasy, like you were there with the victims being haunted. Add to that Joseph Bishara's spine-chilling score with dissonant violins and distant creaking noises, and you've got a movie that is perfect on a technical level. Where The Conjuring falters though for me is with the writing. We do spend time developing the relationship and chemistry of both the parents and the Warrens. The latter are especially put at the forefront of the movie's themes, exploring faith, compassion, love, and trust. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga did an excellent job at conveying all of that, but unfortunately I feel like those themes are touched upon rather than being fully explored. At the end of the day, it comes down to a mom remembering a day at the beach and being able to defeat evil with the power of love. We've seen this before. I wasn't the biggest fan of the humor. The moments of levity were fine and much needed, but the slapstick comedy, not so much.
What? I had to go.
Comedy?
Now this might be a more subjective criticism, but the movie's corny as hell and that just bothered me. There's a lot of melodramatic, overly sentimental scenes that felt a little too sappy for me. All in all, The Conjuring feels all too familiar, yet Wan's vision truly elevated the original material. Thanks to him and his crew of very talented people, he was able to turn this typical demonic possession movie into something fresh and scary. I give it 3.5 Bathshebas out of 5. Annabelle takes place in 1970, after the events of The Nun and Annabelle creation, but before the two Conjuring movies, Annabelle Comes Home and The Curse of La Llorona. Meet John and Mia Form, our main characters who form a couple and who are expecting their first child, Leah. After a little argument with Mia, John does what anybody would do when your girlfriend is mad at you, giving her a horrifying doll. Works every time. But this doll is not possessed yet, and this is when Annabelle Higgins comes into play. Annabelle joined the satanic cult in her teenage years, and later returned to her hometown with her boyfriend to murder her parents.
It's not a phase, Mom. It's my life.
They then creeped in the Form's house and attacked them. But while the boyfriend was busy getting shot to death, Annabelle locked herself up in the nursery with the doll in hand, and she killed herself besides a bloody symbol next to her. This invoked a demon that attached itself onto the doll, seeking the offering of a soul. Now, you might be wondering how this whole soul offering thing works. Well, I'm gonna let Pastor Joel explain this for you.
You can't sell your soul to the devil. You can give it away piece by piece. There might come a day when you can't hear God anymore because you will not listen. First of all, you're not separated from your soul. If they shall fall away again and again and again, decide to desert God again and again
What the fuck?
again
Slow
and again.
down.
Can you sell your soul to the devil? No. By spending your life on momentary pleasures
Wait,
until you're so every time the Holy Spirit comes to say that's sin, you need to repent.
Alright, forget it. Just have this lady jump out the window. Problem solved. I remember hating Annabelle with a passion when it first came out, giving it a whopping 4 out of 10 on IMDb, using my trusty iPod Touch. And yet, somehow, in my second viewing, I had a pretty good time with it. It's as forgettable as your Monday junk mail, but I appreciated just how simple and effective it was. Oh my god, did you hear my voice crack? Oh boy. This was just a simple, suburban, supernatural horror flick where a new mother is growing paranoid in her apartment, getting chased by a demon. Unlike the later, more kid-friendly sequels, they didn't pull any punches here and made good use of the R rating. There's a couple of gruesome, genuinely creepy scares, plenty of blood, a body count, and although Annabelle doesn't bring anything new to the table, the familiar things it does pretty well. I found most of the scares to be effective, from the subtle shadow on the reflection of this painting, to my boy the thick black demon looking motherfucking scary down there. Annabelle's setting is also perfect for a paranoid, claustrophobic horror movie. In the veins of Rosemary's Baby, which is referenced many times in this, Mia is stuck alone in a small apartment with a satanic cult trying to harm her. Now, unlike Rosemary's Baby, I doubt Annabelle is gonna get a Criterion release anytime soon, and don't get me wrong, it is still an exceptionally forgettable movie. But still, it's a nice change of pace nonetheless. It allows us to focus on one single character instead of having to flesh out a whole family. Mia needs to deal with her trauma due to what happened at the beginning of the film. It makes her vulnerable and empathetic, and on top top of that, she needs to take care of her newborn child all by herself. But when you take out the effective scares and the psychological exploration of Mia's character, everything else falls on its face completely. John is boring. Mia's new friend comes out of nowhere.
Evelyn, hi. Here.
Who the hell are you? This guy, Father Perez, he exists and he serves no purpose except for taking pictures of women and their newborn kid.
Hey, 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. That should do it.
And then Annabelle beats him up. As to be expected, the dialogue is horrendous. Take a look at this scene.
Did we ask about names yet?
Sharon.
What? It's not prying, it's just conversation.
We're pretty sure John if it's a boy, and we're thinking Phyllis if it's a girl.
We were?
Yeah, you said you liked it.
I never said that.
It's my grandmother's name.
And I can't stand your grandmother.
Oh, dear.
I mean, it's not only me. I mean, nobody can stand her.
No, she's right. Everyone hates her.
Okay, well.
What? What is this conversation? Why would it be rude to ask how they plan to name their kid? Why would John want to give his daughter his grandmother's name if everybody hates her, including Mia and himself? It's very awkward.
Okay, well.
Overall, Annabelle is an okay side dish. It's got plenty of unnerving moments, but also too many cliches, as well as mostly weak characters and a forgettable plot. It's a perfect comfort food on a rainy day if you feel like watching something simple to fall asleep to. I give it 2.5 Annabelles out of 5. The Conjuring 2 takes place in 1977, after the events of The Nun, the 3 Annabelle films, the first Conjuring, and The Curse of La Llorona. Once again, it's based on the real Warrens case of the Hodgson family, referred to as the Enfield poltergeist. So The Conjuring 2 is not a bad film, but it does follow a worryingly similar structure than its predecessor, to the point of almost feeling like a remake, except this time the family's British, mate.
Margaret! Johnny! Janet, Billy! Hello.
Yes, just like before, a family is haunted by an evil spirit. The mother seeks the help of the Warrens. The Warrens investigate and thematically represent hope, love, and faith. They defeat the baddie, and finally we get a cheesy, overly heartwarming ending. I've seen this movie before. It's called The Conjuring. We do get a much wider variety of scares in this one though. Valak the evil nun, Bill the old ghost, and the crooked man with unconvincing CGI. Also, this time around the climax has a little twist. The audience is meant to think that the vengeful spirit haunting the Hodgsons is this old man Bill who used to live in their house. But then they discover that Bill is just a pawn and that this evil nun is the one who's been pulling all the strings.
The old man's spirit is just a pawn.
And they find this out by playing 2 recordings of Bill's voice simultaneously.
It won't let me go. Help me.
Okay, but why didn't Bill just tell them that instead of being really cryptic? Is it because the nun will punish him otherwise? If so, that wasn't really made clear. And why did Lorraine not sense its presence like in the first movie if it's the most powerful spirit they've ever encountered?
Oh, I don't understand it. I mean, first you say it's not real, now it is.
Her sight was being blocked by the inhuman spirit.
Oh, alright, but if it's even stronger, shouldn't his presence be even easier to detect because it's so powerful? Is that a demon thing I'm not aware of?
No.
If Bill was a nice ghost all along, then why did he psychologically and physically abuse this little girl? Did the nun force him to do that? What is going on? Well, no time to think about that because it's time for the showdown between Lorraine and the nun, the most powerful demon she's ever encountered. Boy, I wonder how they're gonna get out of this one.
Your name gives me dominion over you, demon. And I do know your name.
What? Why does it give you power?
You are Valak! The Defiler! The Profane! The Marquis of Snakes!
The Marquis of Snakes? What the fuck?
I condemn you back to hell!
Really? I thought the power of love was an underwhelming climax, but this just takes the cake. As you may have guessed, my main issue with The Conjuring 2 is its inability to improve upon the original in any way, instead repeating most of what we've already seen before. The film is still very well made and has its fair share of qualities. Once again, the technical aspects are impeccable. Production designer Julie Berghoff, editor Kirk Morey, costume designer Kristen Berg, and composer Joseph Bishara all came back for the sequel, and they greatly contributed to the effective, eerie atmosphere. I especially love Berghoff's work with the Hodgson's house, reflecting the family's despair both economically but also psychologically, with crumbling paint and moldering corners that remind me of my apartment. James Wan, as always, proves to be a master of his craft, and he knows how to build and earn his scares. The one and only place where I think the sequel outshines its predecessor is with its characters. Frances O'Connor did a great job in making her character feel desperate and hopeless, but still very strong and willing to do anything to save her kids. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are, as always, perfectly cast as the Warrens.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. But the true highlight of this film is definitely Madison Wolfe's powerful yet fragile performance as Janet. There are many similarities between her and Regan from The Exorcist, both being oppressed by an evil entity and being not too kind with their mother.
Stop, you old cow!
Janet is at the heart of the film, going through a lot psychologically and physically, and coming out of it even stronger. I liked her. The first half of the movie, despite feeling all too familiar, did manage to creep me out and build a great sense of melancholic dread. But it seems like they dropped the ball with the other half, with cheap scares and an unfocused story. The Crooked Man was promising. I love his design and how it plays on the kids' fears by taking the form of something that should secure them. But then he shows up to scare Ed and destroys the wall like it's a fucking kaiju. Where does that come from? I thought the evil spirit took the form of the Crooked Man to scare the little kid. The CG feels iffy, and the scene ends up being unintentionally funny for me. And speaking of unintentionally funny, we get plenty of our typical levitation scenes that I cannot for the life of me take any seriously. The big baddie in this one is obviously the nun. The character design is great, and the monster does look scary in a few instances, yet I still had a hard time being intimidated by it. There's this scene where she hides behind a painting of herself, and then she starts running towards Lorraine, before just disappearing for no goddamn reason. Why are you holding a painting of yourself up in your face? What is the purpose of that? That's not very scary. Besides that, we still get more terrible humor.
Is your ex-husband still in the picture?
Nope.
Any chance of reconciliation?
He had twins with a woman from around the corner.
So I'm gonna take that as a no.
Comedy? More sappy, overly heartwarming scenes that don't feel genuine, a convoluted plot, and a very weak ending. But for the stronger characters, James Wan's immaculate directing, and some genuinely frightening scares, I'm gonna give The Conjuring 2 3 evil nuns out of 5. Annabelle creation mostly takes place in 1958 after the events of The Nun, but before every other Conjuring and Annabelle movies, as well as The Curse of La Llorona. In this one, we explore the origin of the Annabelle doll that was first introduced in the original Conjuring. Hold up, isn't that what the first Annabelle movie was all about? Oh no. I mean, yes, but no.
Just give us your money.
The film opens in 1943, where we spend some time with the Mullins family, Samuel, Esther, and Annabelle. Look at how happy and loving they are, tickling each other and joyfully laughing. I mean, nothing could possibly go wrong. Oh. 12 years later, the Mullins couple opened their house to provide shelter for orphans, and this is where we meet Janice, a young girl crippled by polio, and her best friend Linda, with whom she shares a sisterly bond.
It'd be nice to have a home. Yeah, but only if you're there. I don't want to go anywhere you're not.
Sure enough, once the orphans arrive to the creepy house, spooky things start happening, like ghosts in the shadows, creepy notes, more ghosts in the shadows, creepy dolls, creepy white sheets in the shadows, demon hands, there's some puking, CGI fingers breaking, ouch, monsters in the well, and my man, the thick black demon from the first film. So, with the help of our good friend, the lazy exposition dump, it's revealed that the grieving Mullins prayed to whatever power would allow them to see their Annabelle again, cause she's dead. But obviously, it didn't bring her back, it just attracted a demon that attached itself to the Annabelle doll. Thanks for the exposition, you can now disappear from the movie forever. So at one point, Janet gets possessed by said demon and goes all crazy trying to stab everybody. In typical Conjuring Universe fashion though, the climax is somewhat underwhelming, as the sister in charge of the orphans just locks Janet inside a room and then they leave. That's how she gets defeated. Being thrown in a room. It wasn't too hard, was it? What I do like though is that for once there is no happy ending. That's right, Janet's still out there and she's now calling herself Annabelle.
Annabelle.
She gets adopted by the Form's neighbors from the first Annabelle film.
Okay, well.
And well, the two movies tie in pretty well.
The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held...
To me, Annabelle Creation is the start of the Disney equivalent of the Conjuring movies. It's not bad, it's got its moments, I had fun with it, but it is, at the end of the day, a perfected formula of predictable jump scares and serviceable story. Thankfully, Talitha Eliana Bateman as Janice and Lulu Wilson as Linda offer great performances as the two close friends who rely upon each other whenever they feel down. Their bond was believable and gave the otherwise generic plot a bit of a heart. It's especially tragic seeing how in the end, Linda lost her best friend, who years later ended up killing herself because of a demon. A thick-ass demon. Besides them though, everybody else felt like they existed only to scream and run around. I at least expected a body count seeing how useless they were, but no. The scarecrow was nice though. The Mullins had a promising arc that ultimately didn't go anywhere. They could have played more with the guilt and grief eating them up, but they end up only serving as exposition for the convenience of the plot. David F. Sandberg's directing was overall pretty good. His obvious love for old-school horror movies can be felt here, and just like in his debut film Lights Out, although he doesn't reinvent the wheel in terms of haunted house scares, he has a talent to take tropes we've seen before and bring a fresh twist to them, or at least an effective scare. His biggest trademark for this film is how he frames his shots in a way to make the audience search the shadows, looking for out-of-focus shapes in the background. There are still the typical scares that I'm not a big fan of, like the levitation scenes, I hate them, and also there's this cheesy line.
What do you need?
Your soul.
But the movie overall did succeed at making me a little bit scared. In the end, Annabelle Creation is one of the safest and most enjoyable movies from this universe, simply because it delivers everything you would expect and does it pretty well. There's plenty of jump scares, creepy imagery, strong main characters with two great child performances, and a creepy old house with hidden secrets. It was okay. I give Annabelle Creation 3 Annabelle dolls out of 5. The Nun takes place in 1952, before the events of every other movie from the Conjuring universe, and it explores the origin of Valak the scary nun from the Conjuring 2. It starts promising enough, with the nun asking God to forgive her before she jumps down a window and hangs herself. Later on, her decaying body is discovered by a villager, Frenchie, and when the officials at the Vatican learn of this suicide, they enlist Father Burke and Sister Irene to investigate. And so the group goes to Romania and looks for clues in this very nice gothic castle that's right up my alley. Unfortunately though, that's about the only positive I can give this movie, as the rest of the plot is a formulaic hodgepodge of cheap scares, stupid character decisions, evil spirits with confusing and contradictory rules, and a stupid ending like always. The scares in this consist of zombie nuns falling, snake vomiting, what the fuck, mirrors breaking, shadows walking, face grabbing, and an immeasurable amount of monsters disappearing.
Is a burning thing, and it makes a fiery ring.
I hate it, but none of this moves the plot forward in any way whatsoever, and since we do need an ending after all, they resolve everything by having Irene spit out the blood of Jesus Christ in the nun's face. Therefore, happy ending, except for Frenchie, who bears the mark of the nun, and he's later revealed to be one of the Warrens' patients who died during an exorcism. I wish I was watching this film instead.
Sounds a little boring.
Ah, The Nun. What a great way to fuck up the most promising spin-off movie in this universe. A gothic period piece horror film taking place in a dark, gloomy church with an ancient evil spirit lurking in the shadows. How'd you manage to make this boring? Admittedly, The Nun does look great on a production value standpoint. The desolate post-World War II setting, the freaky medieval castle, the foggy forest, the eerie cemetery. It's just pure gothic eye candy. But if you look past that, there is absolutely nothing to this film. It is an empty void, a dark abyss of inexistent matter. It's an hour and a half of disjointed scenes having no correlation to one another, existing for the sole purpose of startling the audience with a loud noise before moving on to an exact copy of the same thing. It's a movie about people splitting up, slowly walking through dark corridors with a lantern, with ghouls running around behind them. It's a story in which the exposition is lazily spat out.
Can you tell me about the history of this abbey?
Okay. Or even better, just literally appearing out of nowhere. Where should we go next? Oh, well, here's a bunch of books lying in this coffin. It's like God is trying to move the plot forward.
Maybe those books will help shine a light on our answer.
Okay.
It's a screenplay that fails to go beyond stereotypical basic character outlines, comedic relief, down-to-earth protagonist, wise leader. This is how they start and this is how they end, with no growth. They could have done something interesting with Father Berg, who once performed an exorcism on a young man but failed, and this led to the man's death. It's not much, but at least he didn't lose his kid in a car accident.
He died in a car accident.
It was a car accident.
But no time is spent exploring how this affects him psychologically. No time is spent establishing the guilt he feels and how this guilt is fueling his will to succeed his mission and save people that are in danger. Rather, it seems to serve as an excuse to have another monster show up and throw up a snake. Frenchie makes jokes, and he wants to bang Sister Irene. Isn't that hilarious? I love it. And speaking of Irene, well, Taissa Farmiga did her best with what she had, and I have nothing against her. She's pretty talented in other things, but boy is her character boring. She has the exact same face for the entire runtime. Her only character trait is that she has psychic abilities whenever the plot needs her to, and it barely ever comes back for the climax. Now, if you think Farmiga looks familiar, it's because she's actually Vera Farmiga's younger sister, and I thought for sure they were gonna reveal that they're related somehow in this universe, but no, she just looks very similar and she has the exact same powers. Farmiga mentioned in an interview that she only had a day between finishing a film and departing to Romania to shoot The Nun, and so due to lack of time, she prepared herself for the role by watching YouTube videos of nuns. Nobody gave a shit about this, and neither do I. I give The Nun 2 evil nuns out of 5.
The Curse of La Llorona.
It is impossible to describe the failure of La Llorona with words, so I'm gonna do it with sounds instead. This is not just a dark void of emptiness, it's a black hole that sucks your will to live by the minute until nothing remains of you but a faint distant memory of the life you had before, knowing full well you can never get it back. You already know what this film is, you've already seen it, or at least you saw better versions of it. Family gets haunted, seeks the help of a paranormal expert.
We are facing an evil that has no bounds.
It seems to me like you're an expert.
Expert reveals the monster's backstory and it's never brought back again. There's a montage.
You're boring everybody!
They have a plan, but it fails. They're about to lose, but find another way to defeat the evil. There's a sappy ending, and it's over. It's like a mathematical formula, a movie not made by humans but by an algorithm. The villain of the week this time around is La Llorona, a woman who caught her husband cheating on her, so she drowned their kids to get back to him. But then she's sad that her kids died, even though she just murdered them. I guess just blame that on anger management issues.
Man, I just can't figure women out.
So because of her guilt, she also drowned herself and became a vengeful spirit looking for children to take the place for children, I think. It's confused. I'm not sure.
That is cursed to roam the earth, searching for children to take their place.
But it comes to no surprise that there is no logic whatsoever to the rules established in this film. La Llorona has the power to instantly burn people just by touching them, and yet in this scene she's grabbing this girl's head without physically damaging her in any way. It's established that she has the power to violently force push people with her mind, and yet when the mom arrives to rescue her daughter, the ghost disappeared. Why not do that now? This little girl's almost dead. You almost got it. Don't stop. Do it! Do it now! Apparently, this lady ghost also has the power to be visible, but only through an umbrella. Why do you do this? Are you trying to impress the audience? Are you practicing your Cirque du Soleil number for tonight's show? In the end, though, the true heart of a movie comes from its characters. And they suck! Linda Cardellini does the best she can playing Anna, a widow taking care of her kids on her own and still mourning the loss of her husband. I do like Cardellini as an actor. After all, she played Velma in the live-action Scooby-Doo films, and they're great. Fart jokes! I love it! She's believable as a stressed-out, emotionally wrecked mother who's just trying to do her best. But the movie's too busy showing egg tar instead of taking the time to flesh out her character and truly explore her vulnerability. Raymond Cruz plays Raphael. He's a former priest who's helping the family. Overall he's okay. At least he wasn't annoying, just serviceable enough. But as for the kids, oh my god, I was rooting for the fucking ghost to kill them. They established this rule where La Llorona can't enter the house as long as this magic thing stays on the ground. It's very important, otherwise people could get hurt very badly.
Do not touch them.
Mommy, I got Missy and I didn't break the beans.
You stupid imbecile. The boy isn't much smarter. He encounters this ghost on multiple occasions, even gets physically hurt by it, and then when his mom asks what happened...
I was just imagining things.
Just imagining things. Instead of building suspense with the weeping ghost, this first-time director Michael Caves, I'm not sure, but anyways, he instead opted to have her scream in our fucking faces right at the beginning, taking out the mystery completely in favor of loud noises. Somehow, a Mexican myth about a murderous, crying ghost bride ended up being the worst movie of this whole universe. I give it 1 Llorona out of 5. Annabelle Comes Home takes place in the early 70s, after The Nun, Annabelle Creation, Annabelle the First Conjuring, and... The premise of this movie is incredibly simple. It's a mix between A Night at the Museum and a bunch of Goosebumps episodes. And because of that, Annabelle Comes Home deserves the Silver Award for second most promising spin-off movie in this universe that just ended up being shit. Long story short, Ed and Lorraine go out of town, leaving their daughter Judy, her babysitter Mary Ellen, and Mary Ellen's friend Daniela all alone in a haunted house. A bunch of the cursed items from the Forbidden Room come to life, and the three girls need to find a way to stop it. This is great! There are so many interesting artifacts in the Warrens' haunted room, so to see them all come to life is a terrific idea. But the movie is bogged down by cliché characters, tiresome predictability, and interesting setups that have no payoffs. Instead of cleverly playing with the different creatures and their different powers, they instead regurgitated the familiar tropes we all know. Despite having a wide variety of ghouls and monsters, the scares feel indistinguishable from any other Annabelle film. Our main characters here are very bland, with screenwriting 101 basics as their only character traits. Awkward teen, bullied kid, eccentric friend, and although they touch on Daniela's grief, who lost her father in a car accident, and also Judy's loneliness, feeling like she doesn't fit in, they never fully develop these internal conflicts that are just quickly resolved at the end. Turns out your dad loves you, he told me that. And oh, turns out everybody came to Judy's birthday party, even though nobody wanted to at first. Why is she now a popular kid? What happened? Did God make her a cool kid? Why didn't he do that with me when I was in high school? The final 30 minutes did offer the much needed haunted attraction vibe that I wanted from this movie, but from the painfully slow first hour, where literally nothing happens, to stupid character decisions such as going to a haunted cursed room and touching everything, to an overall waste of a promising concept. I mean, there's a goddamn werewolf and you didn't do jack shit with it. What the fuck is going on here? Annabelle Comes Home is an okay late night watch around Halloween time, but you might enjoy it more if you're drunk with friends to make up for the dull and stupid scenes. I give this one 2.5 Annabelles out of 5. Safe to say, the Conjuring Universe is by no means a prodigious series of films, but they do offer the occasional spooks and manage to entertain me throughout this marathon. If I had to rank them in order from my least favorite to my favorite, it would probably look something like this: La Llorona, The Nun, Annabelle Comes Home, Annabelle, Annabelle Creation, The Conjuring 2, and The Conjuring. I know I'm gonna get shit for enjoying Annabelle, but I stand by it, goddammit. Despite bitching an awful lot about these films, I still am somehow excited to see where this franchise goes, and I truly hope that The Conjuring 3 will be a great movie. Speaking of which, who's directing this one? Fuck.